Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation. I would like to dedicate my lecture to Professor Manfred Dietrich, a great friend of Tartu, who was teaching me years ago Ugaritic and Aramaic. He was friend of daring theories, or I hope you like Bible. I'll overview the common points of scribal habits all over the western part of cuneiform continent, leaving the differences for another occasion. And I apologize to read more or less my paper from my paper. Living in the post-paleographic age, as I hope, we do not pay attention to the question if the lexicalists from Hatusha are in the Syro-Italian or Syrian style. I will pay attention to the commonalities. For example, that these texts usually share an extra column with translation to their own language or with the phonetic spelling of Sumerian and so on. I tried to ensure that the selected examples did not represent an exception, but a rule. I'll generalize a bit, and I know it is a shaky undertaking. Nearly all my examples are from the late Bronze Age. I already presented a similar paper 6 years ago at Berner Orientalisches Forum, and as a symbolic kind of acknowledging this fact, I am wearing the same shirt today. It is a kind of Mesopotamian Damido or question. Only when all the circumstances are taken into consideration can the final result be determined. Hence, I proceeded rather deductively and came to the solution that the Western periphery was, at least compared to the Mesopotamian core, easygoing. In the Mesopotamian lexical list, all kinds of nuances resonate. The list can be acrophonic, semantic, or anything in between. Nevertheless, they like orthodoxy, which is a conditio sine qua non. As Erwin Finkel pointed out, I quote, cuneiform is certainly complex, and we can be sure that over the 300 years of its usage, no one possessed of administrative status ever significantly tried to simplify, let alone make it accessible to all. As a social desideratum was of nobody's agenda in antiquity. In a world where hardly anyone could read, including the kings, a reading ability conferred an unlimited power, and those who held it with their access to age-old wisdom and other limitations would have seen no merit whatsoever in the idea of reading for the masses. Here, on the periphery, I don't mean Tartu as periphery, but Western cuneiform periphery. It seems to me that many such no ones with an administrative status lived side by side. They happily tried to make their scripts, be it cuneiform or linear one, easier, more understandable. This revolution, or like disruptive innovation, found its peak with the ancient Arabs, where nearly anybody informs us, I was here. They ignored polyvalencies of the adopted script and strove to achieve 1-to-1 ratio. Every sign can be understood in just one way. For example, here are just few lines from Hittite misinterpretations or understandings of different Mesopotamian lexical lists, not of the easiest ones. They added a new column with Hittite equivalents because they really wanted to understand it. Every time they succeeded. The reasons are sometimes easy to recognize. They translated false homonym about or the non-opposition of voiced versus voiceless in the recipient language, and so on. On the other hand, translating Sumerian to the Sumerian without any care of the Akkadian equivalent, it was a kind of wordplay. Reflecting a similar progress, Mark Whedon gave an overview of the interpretation of Hittite lexical innovations. I quote, "There has been a tendency in modern scholarship to use certain parts of peripheral cuneiform scholarship that performed outside the Babylonian center in far-flung places such as Anatolia as basically derivative, bereft of innovation and largely uncomprehended. This perspective is now being countered by a view which emphasizes the local use and adaptations of apparently traditional Babylonian scholarship. On the one hand, it has been suggested that the Hittites made conscious changes to the logograms used in the cuneiform script using a variety of resources. On the other hand, some scholars, including myself, have continued to accept either as a default position or programming the deviations from recognized perspectives are simply a mistake. So I feel to be in a good company." His examples include on page 44 the following one from the bilingual group vocabulary Rimpush. As you can see on the last 4 lines, the traditional Babylonian form has 2 columns, the Sumerian on the left side and its Akkadian equivalent on the right side. However, you cannot simply translate Sindhu and Birtu apart. It would be like writing Rif in the first and Raf in the second line. Or like all and in the first and Samrit in the second. These 2 words form an idiomatic expression. But as you can see above, the Hittite scribe preferred to interpret Sindhu as C2, exit, and Birtu as a homophone to Birtu, fort. What stands behind this decision? The mistake or the is it an expression of easygoing? Who would look for an appropriate idiomatic expression in Hittite? Would you? Or is this just another example of a systematic solution trying to suppress the ambivalence and ambiguity and to establish the desired ratio of 1 to 1? Any one example of its own can fit any of these possibilities. In taking into account the wider context of Western scribal or scholastic habits, the last possibility comes to the fore. Last remark. Here's the idiomatic expression. Here is the mistake. Last remark. Are you sure that barbar is a Latin word? We can observe the same tendency to add column in a comprehensible language to Mesopotamian lists in other Western places as well. In Ashkelon, and of course, right. In a diacritical view, Akkadian column has been added to Sumerian only after Sumerian died out. But these columns were added when Akkadian or Huyen, as in this example, were still alive. In this respect, also the Eblite language goes with its Northwest Semitic neighbors. We shall stay a while by the Hittite. The horror alternationis can be seen in their treatment of polyphonic signs that can be read in more, sometimes quite many ways. The sign P, for example, can be read as P of Wawe, Wu, and so on. Undoubtedly also as what. Nothing for the Anatolian Westerners. They decided to enhance it with a phonetic complement. PR for Wa, P plus E for We, and so on. Similar solution we know from the Hittite vassal state MR on the Euphrates as well. And similar solution on the Ugaritec side. For the glottal stop, Aleph, if you want, they had one side. They used it for A, O. Later on, they added to the end of the abecedary 2 additional signs for E and for U. It is, from my point of view, a nice illustration of the thesis of Ignaz J. Gelb that the script, linear one, of Central Semites, it's Arabic, Aramaic, Phoenician, Hebrew script, and font, is not a consonantal, but rather a syllabic one with an undetermined vowel. He was maybe afraid that the 3 Aleph signs with very determined vowels, A and U, militate against his view, and never pointed out, as far as I know, that we can really imagine all the vowels behind one Aleph sign. After the glottal stop lost its phonemic status, be it due to contact with Hurrians or contact with Agains, we have some double spellings that point in this title. One simply decided to put the additional signs, the ratio 1. The redundancy of these simple Ugaritic cuneiform signs is not great, I agree. With one wedge damaged, different sounds erases. Therefore, the scribes begin to make additional allographic for wedge just for greater clarity, just to achieve greater clarity. You can see left for L and right for U as Urtena. And at MR, the 4th wedge, the sign Ash of the Mesopotamia, could be added to this continuation between the vaccine and his number 30. Simply one sign, 1. Okay, after mastering this elementary school of writing and reading the signs, we are treating the higher level, the ominous signs. And back to the list. The ominous series Shuma Isbu were well known in Ugaritic, so much that one of the scribes made a Shuma Isbu Ugaritic language and Ugaritic script. You can see it on slide. It shares the basic traits of its Mesopotamian counterpart. This is usually, but not mostly, introduced to Ba, and instead of something like Imma, the subject of the apodosis is very often king. Malkunuk, in these cases, maybe. If something is missing, the result depends on which side of the fetus it will be. For example, the last line, number 10. If something is missing on the left side, the negative phenomenon applies on the negative hero. Therefore, the good king will do something not good to adversaries, very Mesopotamian, with one exception. To the wall list. There is the ratio 1 to 1. One prothesis is a sign of just one apodosis, not like in the Mesopotamian magic mess. Sometimes these innovations are called disruptive. The concept of disruptive innovation being about a decade or 2 ago, taken from economic sciences to linguistic humanities by the Egyptologist Orly Goldwasser, by describing the invention or acquisition of alphabet script in the so-called Proto-Sinaitic writing. It happened during a hot debate with Anson Rainey. While Rainey glorified this invention as a work of a genial, well-educated priest, scribe, in her opinion, it was a kind of misunderstanding on the side of the illiterate Canaanite miners. They simply understood and took over just a very limited segment of the builder, like their Bugatti colleagues will do few hundred years like that. Nice example of disruptive innovation. It is also our last example of the peripheral treatment of two sophisticated applications. The Egyptian and Mesopotamian models have been simplified, and the desired ratio 1:1 was achieved. Every single grapheme is just a sign for one end. Okay, Brian Pulse and a few others would like to read in the Proto-Semitic inscriptions like the logo consonantal script, but they did not support us, I think. It was my desperate try to understand the basics of peripheral epistemology. Soon we shall hear more about the core area from Professor that will come to the one of the next lectures. Thank you for your attention.